Um, Hello, everybody. My name is Sergio Taylor, and this is Crazy Wisdom as It Is. I've been hearing a lot of people talk about, or alluding to crazy wisdom, and basically, I really feel that no one has genuinely hit the nail on the head on what crazy wisdom is. Even the guy who announced crazy wisdom, his name is Chogyam Trungpa, he did so in such a way to leave out the juicy details because he was so focused on preventing this thing, called spiritual materialism, that he felt that if he delved into crazy wisdom and essentially leaked too much, he felt like his ego, he might have used spirituality as a tool to sustain itself. I feel even Buddhist masters who are certainly enlightened, while they read crazy wisdom, they still don't fully understand what it's really trying to get at. I feel a lot of people talk about Yeshe Chowa, crazy wisdom, in a very broad brush that alludes to something that's kind of next to it, which is like a divine madman, and in some sense that is part of what crazy wisdom is, and I think that there's divine madman moments in a lot of people, but that doesn't really have the crowning jewel that defines what Yeshe Chowa is. And so before I go into the meat and potatoes, if you will, of what crazy wisdom is, I would like to give people a sort of framework, because it's so, how do I say, such a fine, delicate taste, if you will, that it's hard to really grasp just even reading it from Chogyam Trungpa's book. And so that framework actually comes from my own discoveries of like the best way to share what crazy wisdom is. And I think there's no better place to start with what crazy wisdom is than redefining or starting to, because I'm trying to make this as palatable as possible to people. So starting with redefining what is real. And there is this sort of consensus reality in which and this is like a very core foothold of what people experience of what reality is. And what crazy wisdom starts to do is it sort of starts to flip that on its head, if you will. It creates this more open environment. And it starts redefining what is real by getting you to sort of challenge your belief system and start to gain the controls of giving your belief into certain things. And then by generating and cultivating belief and absolute certainty within the thing that you're believing, it generates this realness. And that is really a core defining element of what crazy wisdom is, and it bleeds on to my sort of motivations for discussing this. I've really dealt with schizophrenia, but thankfully, because of the Buddhist Dharma and the tools within it, and a lot of my friends, I've been able to rein in my schizophrenia, and it has allowed me to see schizophrenia in a different light, hence redefining what is real. It's as if it doesn't take much to sort of go on Instagram for maybe 10 slides into any psychedelic or algorithm just to find a tweak or a bozo. And Crazy Wisdom really quenches that. It stops it at its tracks, because this is really about bridging sensibility and restraint and control and skillful release into the mind of, let's just say, a more creative, quote unquote, mind, that has a propensity to do psychedelics and is more likely to be schizophrenic. Now, it doesn't take a lot to find people that are crazy on Instagram. And the thing is, and this is where I go back to Chogyam Trungpa's teaching, which is he delves into this thing called hopelessness. Now, what these psychedelic and goers kind of miss is this hopeless element. Now, I'm not talking about the sort of hopelessness you feel whenever you go through like a breakup, or whenever you feel completely defeated. This hopelessness is a very specific, like kind of razor edge hopeless that is more along the lines of not just, because he says, in the book, and this is where me and him start to sort of differ. He says in the book, hopelessness is this thing that causes a bunch of suffering. And it's this hope that we give into our life, into our goals, into our aspiration, that actually is the thing that we want to remove. It's essentially the first being able to see things as they are. But I like to take it a little step further and say, it's not only a tool as to, for you could use in your life to bring yourself sober, but in a hope removing kind of way, but in a not knowing what reality or anything is kind of way. Like that there is this direct moment to moment experience of hopelessness, which entails not knowing the core perceived moment to moment experience of reality. Like essentially it's basically a form of agnosticism. It's agnosticism, but taken so far that it becomes a visceral lived experience, almost like a different modality in your brain that allows you to attune yourself and become, in a sense, more malleable to the things that you choose to be suggestible to, onto which can, lead you to different states of mind. You have allusions to this sort of different states of mind with or not just crazy wisdom, but in Buddhism or in Hinduism, they have allusions to, the white umbrella, Avalokiteshvara, and it's like this. You have this way of seeing a glimpse through these artworks of what they're trying to tell you. It's like there's a certain message hidden only for those practitioners. And here you have this artistic representation of this guy, with a white trunk with a white umbrella, and it's alluding to psychedelic, the mushrooms, and just like it's alluding to psychedelic and the mushrooms, not only in this way, but in Hinduism with the whole sort of, the holiness of a cow, and it's like the cow is the holy part, and it alludes to the thing that emerges from the cow's poop. I know it sounds kind of crazy or whatever, but you can also see it in American culture, that there's this that there's this calling to a UFO, right? There's a sort of calling to, and what's the typical thing that you see with a UFO, right? You see a UFO and then you see a cow. And some udders, some cow, blah, blah, blah. And this cow, right? Well, not only is this cow, like, what is this trying to tell you? Essentially, there's almost like in dreams, you have these hidden messages within them. And in such a way, these artistic representations of the human psyche also have hidden meanings within them. And I'm going into this because it does have something to do with crazy wisdom, and I'll touch right upon that very soon. The same way that this thing right here with the UFO sucking up the cow, it's akin to a mushroom from a cow to reach the aliens. Like that's essentially it's literally the shape of a mushroom and absorbing in the cow, and it's saying it without really saying it. And Chogyam Trungpa did a lot of this. And you know, my motivations for not following his path is essentially one of based in karma. Like I wouldn't be going out and talking about crazy wisdom if I didn't succumb to an injury. And it's through my practice, and this is a sort of call to action for people that I'm trying to find to, be able to create this sort of, undergo this sort of process where they can see this whole energetic blueprint of the human body, and then be able to ohm. And I'm trying to get like 3 or 4 people to do that with my body and retune my, if you will, my misaligned channels. And I think that it is forthcoming, that this is done from the perspective that it is for the enlightenment of all sentient beings that I'm bringing out this information. And I really wouldn't have done it if I was, healthy. And so, without a further ado, I start to present to you the real meat and potatoes of not just the framework, but of crazy wisdom. You have this whole definitional model that you're really trying to work through. It's essentially words are the way that we perceive reality. And so, I'm giving you this sort of framework around redefining what is real, around hopelessness, to start to slowly pivot the mind into accepting an outlandish worldview, if you will, that is one that instantly pulls the rug under your feet. And that is exactly what crazy wisdom does. What Yeshe Cholla does is this hopeless state of mind puts you in this instant fight or flight mode, if you will, but not necessarily that, but it's more of like, you don't really know what's going on. And my friend would akin it to dropping a coin into a well and never hearing the coin hit the bottom. It's like this sort of spaciousness quality, and it's very instant. It's as if anything can happen. And the way that it is presented in Yeshe Cholla, written by Chogyam Trungpa, is this story about a young boy named Padmasambhava. And he arises from a lotus flower, and he's born from a lake, and this lake, there are villagers around it, and they see the boy. They take the boy to the king, and the king sees the boy and then says to the kingdom, to the villagers, and says, "Innocence is king." Now that in itself is what does that mean? Well, people often believe that absolute power corrupts absolutely. Well, that is a very core fallacy onto as far as which the law of which the universe runs on, if you will. Um, and there's some sort of cases where, yes, absolute power corrupts absolutely within certain people or certain situations, but in like a grandiose like universal law, the kingdom of God can never be corrupted because it is innocence, and innocence itself is something that can never become corrupted, and hence by the meaning of the word itself. And that is why innocence is the thing that has the most amount of power. And what does that power entail? It means being able to go into a certain power structure and ascend the power structure rapidly. And it's sort of like this coming to that, not that everybody in power, in positions of power, will ascend to be the most innocent. And that's kind of the real sauce when it comes to the first chapter of Crazy Wisdom. And I don't mean like the first chapter specifically, but essentially there's different stories within this book of Crazy Wisdom. And each chapter has its own meaning. And I came about this experience through my psychedelic usage, and using this sort of book as a reference point for these that was made for mystics or for endowed people to look back on as a reference. In the same way that there are adult jokes in kids' movies that the kids will not understand. In this story, there's the same kind of essence that only once you fully directly experience the state of mind that is referring to in the chapters will you then be imparted with this sort of bestowment, this sort of endowed quality. And for me, it's a literal activation of it's superpowers that. And the thing is, with Crazy Wisdom, it's very specific on how it's activated, but it requires a situation. It requires a situational token to activate the sort of magical qualities that would give you the power to ascend in a certain power structure. It's not in the sense of like, oh, I'm going to choose to go into this power structure and ascend it. It's more of like, oh, well, I'm here in this power structure and something has given me the token, if you will, to the activation word, if you will, to ascend in this power. And in Crazy Wisdom is the beginning, and this is the beginning because or it's the beginning of this ability to not just ascend one hierarchical power within a structure, but to ascend every single hierarchical power, period, even into which it becomes mastery within certain classes. And not just Muay Thai, not just Jiu-Jitsu, but it's like this situational activation that I've found requires life or threat. Essentially, it's this encoding mechanism for your genome that says I'm too important. I've discovered something too important to die, and it's a reflexatory nature that can fling out and create the situation most beneficial onto you. And there's no better representation of this in the human psyche that we have than the movie The Mask by Jim Carrey, with Jim Carrey in it. And he has this ability to put on this mask within the given situation to activate. And he does it in such a way that essentially gets him what he wants. And yeah, that's a very core thing with Crazy Wisdom. I mean, it is, Buddhism, all of these and I really do mean it to so far of the extent, not just Buddhist traditions, but it spans across Buddhism, Qigong, and I'd go as far as to say yoga, but and the thing with Qigong is that suddenly now, because you have this framework, this model to sort of accelerate the teaching process within a given school, you can take what would take years, 3 years, 4 years of genuine cultivated practice and accelerate it into a week. Once you really have the framework of crazy wisdom understood and interdeveloped. And here's what I mean by this. It's every single tradition, say Zen, say Vajrayana, say Chan Buddhism, they all have their own Thailand Buddhism, they all have their own quirks and features on how to become enlightened. And crazy wisdom is no different. And this is all at the end of the day. At the end of the day, this is just a way for you to become enlightened. And the reason why I'm bringing about this now is because back then, whenever they found crazy wisdom, the monks in the Himalayas or whatever, they decided, hey, this teaching was too advanced for our time. This teaching is too advanced and we need to hide it and seal it. And so this is a little bit, so they hid it and sealed it in some Himalayan valley. And Chogyam Trungpa discovered this, what they call a terma treasure. He heard this through the grapevine of words. He heard that there was this book sealed away in some area. And so he archaeologically dug that site and he found this box with tiles, and through dream interpretation, he was able to decipher what the tiles meant, and hence he got this story, crazy wisdom, otherwise known as Yeshe Chowa. Now, and I really do mean my earnest attempt to be because there is no cabal, there is no hierarchical structure in which I can call back to that, that will restrict me from releasing this teaching. And I do feel it is time. And not only it is time, it's the perfect time. It's as if, because, in akin to the lotus flower rising from the mud, crazy wisdom emerging from Portland is in a sense this sort of antithesis of what crazy wisdom is. It's this sort of samsara to what crazy wisdom really connects with. And it's really poetic. It's story. I mean, it's honestly fucking awesome. And I'm very thankful to my friends that have brought me to this capability. But I really want to hone in on the specific techniques that allow you to sort of maneuver crazy wisdom. And one of the main techniques that I found is suggestibility. It's suggestibility with absolute certainty, or with certainty. This can just be. But all of the suggestibility and the certainty aspect is wrapped around this hopelessness, this sort of agnostic, not knowingness. And this gives you the main access to redefine reality and create and sort of gamify and this is what makes crazy wisdom different. It's this sort of ability to gamify enlightenment to reach nirvana. And it's you are creating the domain in which the game to be played out with. And that is why schizophrenia is seen as this antithesis to a sane mind. However, given the tools of crazy wisdom, it can be the thing that actually is no longer a hindrance, but is a tool. Suddenly schizophrenia becomes good, because now you're having this situation where a matrix lady from the AI simulation is here to help you ascend in enlightenment, and then boom, suddenly you're one step closer to realizing nirvana. There's this, and the thing is with this, there's a certain situationship. It's all of this leads back to the situation that you're in that sort of allows you to tap into a certain certainty that can activate it and release it through the modality of your experience onto reality itself. And this whole transmission element, okay? Like how could I, as someone watching this, actually gain crazy wisdom? And to that, I can't stress this enough, that other than challenging your own worldview and challenging and constantly being someone who's seeking to redefine their linguistic models, the thing that really, really makes you a high likely candidate for this transmission is the ability to have friendship. The ability to have friendship with someone who has crazy wisdom. And it's this sort of rawness, it's this sort of unsheathedness, it's this sort of nudity, if you will, that given this sort of bromance can accelerate the transmission. And by the transmission, I'm not giving you anything. I'm only showing you something that exists within you already. And by the way, this isn't a religion. This is a philosophical path that, taken seriously, can lead you to a visceral nervous system and psyche that not psychic, more like an experience that is connected to the mind and body that realizes the true nature of reality. This isn't a religion in a sense, because this is something that can really be pointed to, and not just pointed to, but can be walked onto and then reached. And it's like, yes, it's this faraway star, but given the right steps and the right planning, it can be done. And that is for the whole Buddhism model, not just crazy wisdom. People, and here's where I kind of add my own taste of how crazy wisdom have sort of injected itself and sort of given me extra prowess. Well, because of this ability to, and I kind of don't want to hover over this. It really takes the right kind of person to see crazy wisdom as it is. Like, I'm not trying to say that, you can have crazy wisdom. I'm really trying to say that it really takes a specific kind of person, and that doesn't mean you have to align in worldviews or something, but it really takes a certain knack, this sort of chemical X, if you will, for someone to realize crazy wisdom. And here's how crazy wisdom has allowed me to accelerate and ascend the ranks of power within not just communities, but with actual esoteric, magical, traditions. So I'd like to really go in depth into the whole gamification element. It's like now that you have this framework and this modality to experience and sort of tool your situation, you can now you can sort of add chi or add this awareness element to create it. And after listening to this man named Damu Mitchell talk, which I'm someone who is absolutely certain has, is learned, and it reflects in his words. And after listening to him for about a month or two, or actually about a week, I came into, through the use of psychedelics, through having crazy wisdom, I came to see the first step of, or the first of many steps of the Dantian, or the building of the Dantian, or the microcosmic orbit, if you will. And I was laying down and I was fighting a demon. And through this, obviously there's this whole framework of like, okay, I am the demon. This is like, I ultimately am infinity and am everyone. And however, I'm creating this sort of veil of illusion to sort of increase my capability of enlightenment through this sort of friction and this sort of generative potential. And so while this demon was me, my goal was to totally encapsulate the realness of this demon as something separate from me that was trying to defeat me. And hence became a very intense struggle. And through this intense struggle, it allowed me to open certain channels in my thighs and in my arms, all through certain body workings. And what it did, it sort of, in some sort of handshake kind of manner, it made me compress chi in a very specific way on my Dantian. And this compression of the chi was done in such a very specific way, with a very specific presence of mind, that it's as if I was encoding my own body with the infinite potential of the chi itself, or this energetic quality. And this, and just to touch on, this is part of the reason why I feel like people like Brian Johnson, who are wholeheartedly, yes, attempting to become enlightened, but or become immortal, will never really see the true immortal flame. And it's because his methodology is more of like a outside in, and it requires that's too long. It takes too long. We're not skilled enough. There's not a lot of techniques like that know the ins and outs of the subtle body. It's too mystical. And while the inside out approach requires this sort of certainty, and it requires this sort of real compression, and this all done with this skillful mind that bridges what I'm absolutely certain Brian Johnson deals with every single day, is doubt in the practices that he's doing. This tool, the microcosmic orbit, cuts all of that through, because it is now a tangible, direct moment-to-moment experience that absolutely shuts down uncertainty if done correctly. And that is what this demon was trying to do. And it had all of these legs, and it had all of these arms, and it was forming mudras and whatnot to sort of descend, if you will, to this reality and connect itself to me. And I allowed it through my absorption into the nervous system. And this is a very technical, this is a very specific, this is very defined and a very specified approach to realizing immortality, to realizing truth, nirvana, and to breaking schizophrenia, not from a pill, but going straight to the source, which is the cause of schizophrenia, which is the nature of your own mind. And not in like the Buddhist sense of the nature, but as you are right now. And I want to add on to that, that demons are just one of many things that can happen to, and I find it kind of ironic in a sense that Portland, if you know, the movie Twilight, the mansion is here located in Portland. And it kind of is akin to this sexual cultivative energy. And I kind of just want to touch upon it because I think that this will get too off track of like what crazy wisdom is and where I want to go with this. And I kind of want to leave that into a whole different sort of episode or whole different YouTube video. But let's just say that demons are very, physical, grappling, more jujitsu. Vampires are very sexual and want to drain you. So I'm gonna leave it at that for now. But that's sort of how crazy wisdom can give you the tools to throw yourself in situations that allow you to ascend other magical teachings. And to which, the whole reason why I'm making this video, not only to help heal myself, but to sort of as a beacon to sort of accelerate the enlightenment of all sentient beings, to find like-minded people. And this is honestly the thing that is most fulfilling to me, is working towards this goal of finding adept practitioners and going onto a mountain somewhere where there's only mountains as far as the eye can see, and just doing this dance where we cultivate energy and we do it in a sort of bird formation. And the person at the middle has the most amount, is taking the most resistance, if you will, has the highest amount of generative force in this sort of bird formation, right? And the thing is this is a system to accelerate the enlightenment of all sentient beings through a physical model that takes an active principle onto what seems like a passive, we need to let nature do its course. And so through this generation method, if you will, through this dancing technique, that's just a little bit of fun. You sort of generate this power, and then you have someone here who is already a part of this cycle, but he's the guy who gets out of the dance, if you will, and he is fucking blitzing out with energy. And he says, I'm going to use all this energy and channel it into oming for the enlightenment of all sentient beings, until which this energy is deprived, and we then put him back into the little triangle formation, and then this guy at the tippy tip gets out, and then he does the same thing. And essentially, now this is a very high goal, but essentially we do that for infinity. Essentially, by this time, we should be adept enough to no longer even need sleep, because this is the efficiency of our energetic cultivation. And this is the main reason why I'm releasing what I feel is to be the first official clue into the real in-depth element of what crazy wisdom is. And I feel like I hit it right on the nail on the head. And by the way, there's no one, I know that there's this sort of curiosity towards charlatans or people who portray a certain thing, but there's no one else saying what crazy wisdom is like I am. Everyone, I've heard from the Dalai Lama saying that there is no known masters of crazy wisdom, and it is, partially, I don't know why it's so secretive. I don't know why. I think that there is a certain time for it to be released, and yeah, I think that this is the first drip feed, if you will, into the human psyche, and yeah, we'll see where reality goes. I'm really trying to make this happen, and yeah, and I need your help. So, but given the whole element of ascending within certain powers, it's like I almost need to, you know, I think I'm just gonna leave it like this here. Hey, this is Crazy Wisdom as it is, and yeah, thanks for watching. Let's see, anything else I want to tap back into? Yeah, you taming schizophrenia, drinking beer and having psychedelics, also having sex also really helps. Yeah, innocence, awesome. But yeah, there's multiple chapters. I only experienced the first chapter of Crazy Wisdom and realized the hidden meaning within it. And at the end of the last chapter or something, there's like this story where the guy this guy travels and he walks and he finds this yogi in a mountain, and then the yogi snorts up the guy, and then it passes through his organ systems, and he eventually poops him out, and whenever he poops him out, the guy becomes enlightened. And so that's kind of like the whole jizmabobble with Crazy Wisdom. But yeah, I'm really excited to meet other like-minded people, and let's get the show started. Peace.